Hey everybody, Tiffany here. I thought I would share with you all my finished December daily album for 2015. If you've been following along on my blog, you have seen a lot of the pages that I've already made, and I'll continue to share those this week so you can see them a little more close up. But I thought it might be fun for some of you all to just go ahead and take a look at it in video form. You can see the outside of my album here. It's very simple. I went with this 6x8 craft album by Recollections. I bought that at my local Hobby Lobby because it was available when I needed it and it was simple. Those were the things that I wanted. I've used mostly October Afternoon products throughout the album, but I do have a few older things from my stash that I incorporated, and also a few things that I picked up here and there, and I'll try to point those out as we go through. I'm trying to catch the last of the light here today, so it might not be as long and full of discussion as it might have been otherwise. All right, and when I open my album, you can see the very first page is just the title page. I started with some October Afternoon paper. I layered on top of it a tag that I bought at Target in the dollar spot. I have some October Afternoon stars here at the bottom that a couple of them I've actually popped up to give them some dimension. I have this vintage die cut that I think is just adorable. And then at the very top, you can see a label with the 2015 year. Those are some ancient number stickers that I had in my stash. One of the things that's been a stumbling block for me in the past with December Daily has been that I don't always do something Christmassy every day. And so I was so thrilled when Amy and Cam over at 30 Days of Lists offered their December subscription to me. And so I actually used those journaling prompts as the basis for a lot of my pages this month. A lot of my pages don't necessarily have pictures on them. So if you're like me and you haven't necessarily been happy with December Daily in the past, or maybe even you've avoided it because you didn't think you did enough stuff in December, this might be a great option for you either this year or you could even do it next year. On December 1st, the prompt for 30 Days of Lists was December is for. So I made a whole list here of things that I think December is for. And I actually included a picture of my tree and a picture of some vintage items. I like this page because, you know, I'm going to have a picture of my tree in every December daily album that I make. But the journaling is going to be different. You know, I've never approached it in that particular way before. I also absolutely adore the October Afternoon die cuts that are two-sided. It made it so simple to use them in these divided page protectors. So you can see it on the back side here. Day 2 was another journaling driven page. And the prompt for this one was, this year I tried lots of new things. So the new things that I did in 2015. And I made a list of those. I incorporated Project Life cards because, you know, I have 1 million of them and some of them are old. These are old. I also made my own card out of some October Afternoon paper. And then here you can see I cut off part of a Target tag from the dollar spot and made it fit. These are very simple pages. This one doesn't even have a photo on it, but I'm still really happy with it. Days 3 and 4 were also journaling driven. I was working. There wasn't anything really exciting happening. And so I went back to the 30 Days of List prompts and I used those for these pages. December 3 was about ways to spread holiday cheer. Then I have these little strips of journaling that tell you that. And December 4th was a list of ways to survive cold weather. You can see here I incorporated some old Project Life cards and made my little checklist. I also like how I've got these little bits of twine hanging out of the pocket. I think that's an added fun element. December 5th is one of those days where I had a story to tell and I had photos, but it didn't have anything to do with Christmas. And I've struggled with that in the past, but I've decided, hey, it's the story of December, not just the story of Christmas. So with that approach in mind, it didn't bother me quite so much. On December 5th, my Bowling Green High Purples won their 4th state championship in football in 5 years. And so we have some cold weather sorts of embellishments over here on the left because it was pretty cold that day. And on the right, we have a couple of pictures. The fella and I at the ball game, and then we have the kids as the final seconds of the game played out. That was a fun memory. I'm glad I got to document that. Day 6 and day 7, I'm back to the list because, again, nothing exciting was particularly happening. I didn't take any great photos that I wanted to share. On day 6, the prompt was ways to get creative, and I incorporated this 6 not only for the day of the month, but also the 6 different suggestions I have on ways to be creative. You'll also notice that throughout the album, I've popped some items up, sometimes on the inside of the page protector, sometimes on the outside. And I've tried to repeat some elements, circle elements are kind of all the way through. I've stapled some items all the way through. I've used different kinds of twine and that sort of thing. It's subtle. It's not something that's super obvious, I think, but I like that it made it feel a little more cohesive as an album. On day 7, the prompt was how to battle a case of the Mondays. And boy, did I have a case of the Mondays that week. So I thought that was very apropos. On day 8, again, I'm focusing on the journaling. Headlines I would like to see. And I think this is interesting because it tells you a little bit about who I am, certainly, but it also tells you a little bit about the world that we're living in right now. I used some elements outside of the page protector on this, which is fun. And I don't know if you've noticed so far, but on the days when I'm journaling, I have a tendency to use a title. And on the days that I'm not journaling, I don't really use a title. That wasn't something that I planned out ahead of time. It's just sort of how it worked out. Day 9 and 10. That's the story of a professional development meeting that I attended that ended up being quite an adventure. And I dealt with a problem here. I had to decide. Day 9 needed 2 pages, but I was starting on the right, so like, what do? Do I make day 8 longer than it should be, or how do I deal with that? What I decided to do is to go right on and tell the rest of the day 9 story on the back of that page. There's no rule that says that I can't. And particularly since day 10 was kind of a continuation of that whole trip. Day 10 is one of my favorite pages in the whole album. I absolutely love these 2x2 squares from the Simple Stories page protector. The holes were not exactly right, so I covered the existing holes with washi tape, and then I re-punched holes to fit in my album. So that's a good tip for anybody who might want to use different kinds of divided page protectors than the brand that your particular album came with. But I absolutely loved putting all these different elements in this page. I have some floating items. I have some pattern paper. I have some little photos. It was really a lot of fun to put together. And I was like, I want every page in my album to be like this. I mean, obviously it's not, but I really did enjoy it. If you haven't tried these 2x2 squares pages, I would definitely recommend giving them a shot. And then on the back of that, you can see I tell the story of day 11, which is actually just a journaling prompt, what I changed this year. And I had 6 items that I changed, and I actually just hand wrote on the back of a journaling card, actually, that I cut up to fit those squares. I wanted to use what I had on hand. Stay tuned for part 2. We'll talk about days 12 through the end of the month, hopefully.